The urinary system consists of the kidneys, which produce the urine that is carried away by the ureters. The ureters carry that urine to the urinary bladder for storage until it's time to be released through the urethra. The urinary system has a few functions. The first and foremost is to remove nitrogenous wastes or nitrogen-containing wastes from the blood. The predominant nitrogenous waste is an organic molecule called urea, and you can see there the amino groups of the urea here, the nitrogen that we're trying to get rid of. And those amino groups stem from molecules like amino acids and nucleotides, which can be used in cellular respiration only after those amino groups are removed. And those amino groups tend to become a toxic form called ammonia, which our bodies don't like much, and instead make into urea to remove from the blood. Now, the other functions of the urinary system that we'll see as we go along is that they're the maintenance of the water-salt balance of the blood, as well as the acid-base balance of the blood. Okay, so let's take a look at the kidney, its structure, and then we'll evaluate how it functions to produce urine. So the kidney, first and foremost, filters blood to produce urine. That is its function. And that blood will enter the kidney through what's called a renal artery, coming straight off of the dorsal aorta. And then after that blood is filtered through the kidney, it will leave the kidney in the renal vein to return to the inferior vena cava. Now, as a result of that filtration, the substance urine is produced, and that urine will leave the kidney through the ureter. So there are three major parts or regions of the kidney to become familiar with. The first is the outermost layer of the kidney called the renal cortex. The second is this middle region called the renal medulla. And finally, the very innermost region, the renal pelvis. And we're going to see this next structure, the nephron, which spans the renal cortex and the renal medulla to make urine. Okay, so here is the nephron. Now, what you see here is the circulatory system coming into this tuft, this ball of capillaries, and then continuing on. And the nephron is this tubular system here that's intertwined with all of these capillaries. So this is the functional unit of the kidney that actually produces the urine. And there are about 1 million of these in each of your kidneys, so many, many nephrons within the kidney doing the job of producing that urine. So here you can see that blood moving through this tuft of capillaries. We call this the nephron capsule, and this is where the filtration event happens, where the stuff that leaves that blood, the filtrate, then travels through this convoluted tubule all the way to the end. So let's take a look at a simpler representation of the nephron, as you can see in this diagram here. Now, there's that first part, the nephron capsule, that we were just looking at, where the blood is initially filtered. The next region of the nephron is called the proximal tubule, and you can see it as the thickened purple portion here in this diagram. There's then a long nephron loop that dips deep into the renal medulla, followed by the distal tubule, which comes back up into the renal cortex of the kidney, before finally joining the collecting duct, off of which can be many nephrons, and the collecting duct will then finally carry urine out to the renal pelvis, which then continues on to the ureter. Okay, so let's start the process of urine formation by looking at the first step, filtration, which occurs in the nephron capsule. So again, this is the first step of urine formation, filtration. It happens here in the nephron capsule. And the blood is passing through very thin capillaries here, and there's an amazing amount of blood pressure within this ball of capillaries due to there being a larger diameter of the entering blood vessel than the one that's leaving, causing a buildup of blood pressure. And as a result, a number of substances leave simply due to blood pressure. From the plasma, we get water, nutrients, salts, and urea all leaving the blood enter the nephron. We collectively call these things the filtrate. Now, this should seem a little strange to you because we need water, we need nutrients, and we need salts, and yet if they're entering the nephron, they're destined to become urine and excreted from the body. The only thing that stayed behind in the blood are the formed elements, the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, as well as large plasma proteins. About 20% of the plasma that passes through the nephron capsule leaves as filtrate. Okay, so we just covered filtration, which happens in the nephron capsule here. So now let's move on to the next step, which is reabsorption, which occurs in the proximal tubule. Now, reabsorption is where we get those things that we just lost in the filtration step back. So our water, some of our salts, and all of our organic nutrients are returned back to the tissue fluids in the bloodstream here in the proximal tubule in this second step we call reabsorption. The urea and some water and salts continue on. Now, after passing through the nephron loop and becoming extremely concentrated, the third step of urine formation, secretion, occurs where we have sort of a last-ditch effort to get rid of unwanted materials that didn't leave during the filtration step. So things like protons, hydrogen ion, ammonia, and drugs like penicillin are returned selectively. Finally, the urine is leaving through the collecting duct, and our bodies can selectively reabsorb water at this point to maintain that water and salt balance.